The smoke alarm never went off that night. That was my first clue this wasn't an accident. My second was finding my bedroom door locked from the outside as flames climbed the hallway walls. My third was seeing my brother Michael watching from across the street, his face illuminated by our burning family home. Not calling 911, not screaming my name, just observing with cold detachment as I was supposed to die inside. We had shared everything growing up, parents, holidays, secrets, but apparently he didn't want to share the $4 million insurance policy he'd taken out on my life. As I limped away from the inferno that was meant to be my funeral pyre, our eyes met across the distance. His expression wasn't relief, it was fury. That's when I understood. My survival wasn't just inconvenient for him. It was unforgivable. He would try again. And next time, he wouldn't make the mistake of watching from a distance. What Michael never realized about me, his fragile artistic sister, was that I'd always been the survivor in our family. And survivors learn quickly. When someone tries to burn your life down, you don't just rebuild. You come back fireproof. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. I never thought I'd be grateful for the squeaky hinge on my bathroom window. That annoying sound, the one I'd been meaning to fix for months, was what saved my life the night my brother tried to kill me. It was 3:17 a.m. when I jolted awake. Not to the blaring of a smoke alarm, but to the acrid smell of smoke itself. Already, thick and choking in my bedroom. Disoriented and coughing, I fumbled for my phone on the nightstand, my eyes burning as I tried to make sense of what was happening. "Hello?" I called out, wondering if Michael had somehow fallen asleep with something on the stove. "Michael? Is something burning?" No response. Just the distant crackle of flames and the increasingly oppressive heat. I stumbled to my bedroom door, wrapping my hand in the sleeve of my pajama top before touching the handle. It wasn't hot, which was a small mercy, but when I tried to turn it, nothing. I rattled it harder, then threw my shoulder against the solid oak door, but it wouldn't budge an inch. "Hello? Anyone?" "The door's stuck," I shouted, panic rising in my throat. Then a terrible realization dawned as I knelt down to peer through the keyhole. The key that was normally in the lock on my side was missing, and through the small opening, I could see something blocking the door from the outside. Someone had locked me in. I ran to the window, but my bedroom was on the second floor of our Victorian family home, a good 20-foot drop to the stone patio below. Breaking that window and jumping would likely mean broken bones at best, and the thick smoke was making it harder to think clearly with each passing second. I reached for my phone again, fingers trembling as I dialed 911. No signal. This made no sense. I always had perfect reception in my room. I tried again. Nothing. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This was planned. Methodically, carefully planned. The smoke was getting thicker now, seeping under my door in ominous tendrils. I could see an orange glow through the gap, suggesting flames in the hallway outside. My eyes darted around the room, desperately seeking an escape route, when I remembered the bathroom. My bedroom in our old Victorian had an adjoining bathroom, a small one with a window that overlooked the side yard. It wasn't much, but it was my only chance. I wet a towel in the sink and pressed it against my face, trying to filter the smoke as I made my way to that small window above the toilet. The window was painted shut from decades of layered paint, stubborn even on good days. With shaking hands and adrenaline surging through me, I grabbed my hairdryer from the counter and smashed it against the lock until it broke free. The familiar squeak of the hinge was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard as I pushed it open and gulped in the cool night air. The window was small, barely 15 inches wide, but I was determined to fit through it. Outside, I could see flames, already licking up the side of the house from the first-floor windows below. I squeezed my shoulders through first, scraping skin in the process, then wriggled my hips through the narrow opening until I was hanging from the windowsill, my legs dangling 15 feet above the garden shed roof. There was no time to consider the drop. I could feel the heat intensifying behind me as I let go, falling briefly before hitting the sloped shed roof hard. The impact knocked the wind out of me, and I tumbled, rolling off the edge and landing with a sickening crunch in the flower bed. Below, pain shot through my ankle as I tried to stand, but I forced myself up, hobbling away from the burning house. That's when I saw him. Across the street, illuminated by the orange glow of our burning home, stood my brother Michael. He wasn't on the phone calling for help. He wasn't rushing toward the house with concern. He was just watching, calmly, clinically, like someone observing an experiment. Our eyes met across the distance, and in that instant, everything changed. His expression shifted from composed observation to unmistakable shock, then quickly to anger. He hadn't expected to see me alive. Without a word, he turned and walked briskly to his car parked down the block. "Michael!" I tried to shout, but my smoke-ravaged throat produced only a hoarse whisper. "Michael, wait!" He didn't look back as he got into his BMW and drove away, leaving me standing there, injured and betrayed as our childhood home burned. The wail of approaching sirens broke through my shock. Neighbors were emerging from their houses now, some in bathrobes, others already dressed, phones in hand as they recorded the blaze. Mrs. Winters from next door rushed over with a blanket, wrapping it around my shoulders and guiding me to her porch steps. "My God, Rebecca, what happened?" she asked, her weathered face etched with concern. Before I could answer, emergency vehicles flooded the street. Fire trucks, police cars, an ambulance. I was quickly surrounded by first responders, one checking my vitals while another asked questions I could barely process. The shock was setting in, making everything seem distant and unreal. "Ma'am, do you know how the fire might have started?" A detective appeared in front of me, notebook in hand. "My door was locked from the outside," I managed to say between coughs. "Someone locked me in. And my brother. Michael was watching from across the street. He drove away when he saw me." The detective exchanged a significant look with the fire chief, who had joined us. "Chief Daniels says they've identified multiple points of origin. That usually indicates arson," I finished, the word hanging in the night air like the smoke still billowing from my home. At the hospital, a doctor treated my sprained ankle and the various cuts and bruises from my fall. I was kept overnight for observation due to smoke inhalation, left alone in the sterile room with my racing thoughts and the beeping of monitors. Around dawn, my phone chimed with a notification. They'd recovered it from my room, surprisingly, undamaged. With trembling fingers, I opened the email that had just arrived, an insurance policy confirmation. But it wasn't addressed to me. It had been mistakenly sent to my email instead of Michael's, a simple clerical error that revealed his plan. A $4 million life insurance policy on me, taken out 6 months ago, with recent modifications increasing the payout. The sole beneficiary? Michael Anderson, my only living relative. My brother hadn't just been willing to let me die in that fire. He had planned it, prepared for it, and stood watching to make sure it happened. I closed my eyes, the monitors beeping faster as my heart rate increased. The perfect murder, designed to look like a tragic accident. Except I hadn't followed the script. I'd survived, and now I knew the truth. 2 days after the fire, I sat in my best friend Rachel's spare bedroom, staring blankly at the unfamiliar walls. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flames and Michael's face watching from across the street. The doctor had prescribed something to help me sleep, but the orange bottle remained untouched on the nightstand. I couldn't afford to dull my senses, not when I knew my brother wanted me dead. "Rebecca? There's someone here to see you." Rachel's voice came through the door, tentative and concerned. She'd been walking on eggshells around me since bringing me home from the hospital, clearly unsure how to handle my claims about Michael's involvement. I expected Detective Rivera, who had taken my statement at the hospital. Instead, a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair and sharp eyes entered the room. She wore a charcoal pantsuit and carried a leather portfolio under one arm. "Cassandra Wells," she introduced herself, extending a hand. "I'm investigating the fire for Meridian Insurance." Her handshake was firm, her gaze assessing me with professional detachment. I motioned for her to take the chair by the window while I perched on the edge of the bed, wincing as I adjusted my bandaged ankle. "Let me be direct, Ms. Anderson," Cassandra said, opening her portfolio. "The fire that destroyed your home has been officially classified as arson. Multiple ignition points, accelerants, and the fact that your bedroom door was barricaded shut. These aren't coincidences." "I know," I said quietly. "My brother tried to kill me." I expected skepticism, the same kind I'd seen in Detective Rivera's eyes, but Cassandra merely nodded. "I've been doing this job for 23 years, Ms. Anderson. I've learned to trust evidence over appearances. Your brother has an alibi for the time of the fire, but alibis can be manufactured. What I'd like to know is why he would want you dead." The directness of her question caught me off guard. Over the next hour, I shared everything: the family history, the business we co-owned, the mysteriously sent insurance policy confirmation. Cassandra took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions but mostly listening with intense focus. "Our parents died in a car accident 3 years ago," I explained, the familiar grief mixing with new suspicions. "They left us equal shares in the house and the family business, Anderson Design Group. I handle the creative side, Michael manages the finances. At least, that's what I thought he was doing." "And the business? It's profitable?" Cassandra asked. I hesitated. It was. The pandemic hit us hard, but we were recovering. At least that's what Michael told me. Now I'm not so sure. Using Rachel's laptop, I logged into my emergency cloud storage, a habit I'd developed after our parents' accident, keeping copies of important documents where I could access them from anywhere. What I found confirmed my worst fears. "He's been accessing my accounts," I said, showing Cassandra the login history. "Not just email, but my design files, client lists, everything." Further digging revealed something even more disturbing. Michael had been researching house fires, insurance payouts, and had screenshots of my personal calendar showing exactly when I'd be home alone. He knew I always take a sleeping pill on Thursday nights after my late client meetings, I whispered, the pieces falling into horrible alignment. He knew I'd be deeply asleep when the fire started. Cassandra's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. "I need to show you something." She pulled documents from her portfolio, financial records showing Michael had taken out massive loans against his portion of the house and business. "Your brother is in financial trouble, Ms. Anderson. Gambling debts, failed investments. He's nearly bankrupted himself." "And I never knew," I said, my voice hollow. "He kept it all from me." "People with secrets get desperate," Cassandra replied. "And desperate people do unthinkable things." That evening, I tried repeatedly to contact Michael. His phone went straight to voicemail, and he wasn't at his apartment. Finally, I reached his girlfriend, Emma. She agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown, her reluctance obvious even over the phone. Emma had always been polite but distant, a slim blonde who seemed too polished for my brother's usual type. As she slid into the booth across from me, her eyes fixed on my bandaged ankle, then the fading bruises on my arms. "Michael said you had an accident," she said carefully. "Did he tell you our house burned down with me inside it?" I countered. "Did he mention someone locked my bedroom door from the outside?" Emma's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. "He said you're not thinking clearly, that the trauma from the fire is making you paranoid. Is it paranoia to wonder why my brother was watching our burning house from across the street instead of helping me?" or why he took out a $4 million life insurance policy on me 6 months ago. Emma's face paled slightly, but she maintained her composure. Michael and I have been planning a trip to Europe. He's been saving for it, working extra hours. He would never— Her voice trailed off as I slid my phone across the table, showing her the insurance policy confirmation email. An international trip sounds convenient right now, doesn't it? Especially with $4 million to fund it. Emma abruptly stood, gathering her purse. Michael says you've always been jealous of him, that you resent how he turned the business around after your parents died. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Get help, Rebecca, before you destroy what's left of your family with these accusations. She left me sitting there, anger and frustration building inside me. Michael had clearly been working on his narrative, painting me as unstable, jealous, possibly even responsible for the fire myself. How many others had he convinced? The next day, I finally cornered Michael at his office. He looked up from his desk with carefully composed surprise. Becca, he said, rising to embrace me. Thank God you're okay. I've been so worried. I stepped back, avoiding his touch. Save it, Michael. I saw you watching the house burn. You drove away when you realized I was alive. His expression shifted seamlessly from concern to gentle pity. You hit your head when you fell, Becca. The doctors warned me you might be confused, might create false memories to make sense of the trauma. False memories? My voice rose sharply. Like the memory of my bedroom door being locked from the outside, or the memory of the insurance policy you took out on me? Michael sighed, shaking his head sadly. I expected this. The investigators said you're pushing this arson theory because you can't accept that you might have left a candle burning, might have caused this accident yourself. You think I did this? I was nearly shouting now. You think I destroyed our family home? I think you need help, Michael said, his voice maddeningly calm. Professional help. In fact, I've already spoken to Dr. Mercer about— Don't you dare try to have me committed, I hissed. I know what you did, and I'm going to prove it. Michael's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Be careful with accusations like that, Becca. People might start to wonder who really had a motive to burn down that house, especially when they learn about your recent design failures and how you've been drinking again. I hadn't touched alcohol in years, not since a brief struggle after our parents' death. The casual lie showed me just how far Michael was willing to go to discredit me. This isn't over, I promised, turning to leave. No, he agreed quietly. It isn't. When I returned to Rachel's apartment that evening, I found Cassandra waiting for me, a grim expression on her face. I've been doing some digging, she said without preamble. These came from your brother's cloud storage, legally obtained through our insurance investigation. She spread documents across Rachel's coffee table, detailed floor plans of my bedroom, research on accelerants that would burn hot and fast, keyboard logs showing searches for how to make arson look accidental, and average police response, time to house fires. This is it, I breathed. This is proof. Circumstantial evidence, Cassandra cautioned. Enough for my investigation, but not enough for criminal charges. He could claim he was researching this for a thriller novel he's writing or 100 other excuses. So he gets away with it? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Not if I have anything to say about it, Cassandra replied, a steely determination in her eyes. This case just became personal for me. Later that evening, Detective Rivera arrived to take my official statement. He reviewed the evidence Cassandra had gathered but warned me what I already knew. Without concrete proof of Michael physically starting the fire, they could only investigate. His alibi with Emma muddied the waters further. We'll keep digging, Rivera promised as he left. In the meantime, be careful. Stay with your friend, vary your routine, don't go anywhere alone. His warning proved prescient. Just after midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You were supposed to be gone. Accidents can happen twice. With shaking hands, I showed the message to Rachel, who immediately called the building's security. They checked the footage from the street cameras and confirmed what I already suspected. Michael's distinctive BMW had driven slowly past the building earlier that day. The threat was clear. I had survived once. He wouldn't let it happen again. He tried to poison me first. The realization came to me as Cassandra and I sat in her car outside Michael's office building the following morning. 3 months ago, I was getting progressively sicker. Fatigue, hair loss, stomach pains. The doctors couldn't figure it out, because the symptoms would disappear, then return. Cassandra turned to me, eyes narrowing. What made it stop? I went to a design conference in Chicago for 2 weeks. By the time I came back, I felt fine. I closed my eyes, connecting dots that should have been obvious. Michael would bring me tea every Sunday when he came to discuss business. He knows I love Earl Grey with honey. The sickness always got worse after his visits. We need to get. You tested for heavy metals, Cassandra said, already pulling out her phone. If we can prove he was poisoning you, it would establish a pattern, I finished. But why tell me about the insurance policy by showing up to watch the house burn? Why not just let you die quietly from poison? Cassandra's expression darkened. Some arsonists need to watch. It's part of the thrill for them. And if he's been planning this for months, building up to it. She didn't need to finish the thought. My brother, whom I'd grown up with, whom I'd grieved with after our parents' death, had methodically planned my murder, first by poison, then by fire. The realization made me physically ill. There's something else you should know, Cassandra said quietly. I don't usually share this with clients, but I lost my sister to an insurance fraud arson case 10 years ago. Her husband did it for a $500,000 policy. He got away with it because the evidence was circumstantial. I became an investigator after that. The confession explained her personal investment in my case. We weren't just investigator and client anymore. We were allies united by similar tragedies. How do we catch him? I asked. He's careful, and he has Emma backing his story. We need to look closer at Emma, Cassandra suggested. Michael doesn't strike me as the type to get his hands dirty with the actual fire setting. He might have had help. A quick background check on Emma revealed something interesting. Her brother, Kyle Simmons, had a juvenile record sealed by the court. With some creative investigative work that skirted the edges of legality, Cassandra discovered the sealed record contained charges related to fire setting and property destruction. Family business, Cassandra muttered as we reviewed the information. Emma's brother has connections to professional arsonists through his construction work. He could have provided expertise or even set the fire himself. While Michael and Emma attended a charity gala that weekend, maintaining their public image of concerned, respectable citizens, Cassandra and I took a risk. With a set of Michael's house keys I still had from when I'd watch his cat during business trips, we entered his home, searching for any concrete evidence. Hidden behind books in his office, we found a small safe. Years ago, Michael had shown me the combination, his college football jersey number repeated twice. He'd never changed it, allowing me to open it easily. Inside was a treasure trove of damning evidence, documents about the insurance policy, a burner phone with text messages to Kyle about the job, and receipts for chemical purchases that matched the accelerants found at the fire scene. We need to document everything, Cassandra whispered, photographing the contents with her phone. This is enough for Rivera to get a proper search warrant. Before we could finish, headlights swept across the front window. Michael was home early. We quickly replaced everything, slipping out the back door just as his key turned in the front. Lock. The next day, with help from my tech-savvy friend Ethan, we accessed Michael's deleted browser history through his cloud backup. The searches weren't limited to arson techniques. They included extensive research on undetectable poisons, specifically thallium, which matched perfectly with my mysterious illness months earlier. Medical tests confirmed what we already suspected. Trace amounts of thallium remained in my system, not enough to cause permanent damage, but clear evidence of poisoning. When we examined our family business records more carefully, we discovered Michael had been embezzling funds for years and had taken out a second insurance policy on me through the business, bringing his potential payout to $7 million. He's underwater. Financially, Cassandra explained as we compiled the evidence. Gambling debts, failed investments, and now embezzlement. Your death would solve all his problems at once. Our breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Winters, our elderly neighbor who had been awake with insomnia the night of the fire, called to tell me she'd seen someone matching Kyle's description entering our house through the back door hours before the blaze. She hadn't thought much of it, assuming he was a friend of Michael's, until she saw Kyle's photo on a news report about an unrelated construction accident. With mounting evidence but still nothing directly connecting Michael to the arson itself, Cassandra devised a plan. Wearing a wire provided by Detective Rivera, I arranged to meet Michael at a neutral location, a public park with enough privacy for conversation, but plenty of witnesses for safety. I know about the embezzlement, I told him, making no mention of the arson. I found the records, Michael. How could you steal from our parents' company? His initial denial gave way to anger when I showed him copies of the financial documents. You have no idea what I've been dealing with, he hissed. Dad left us in debt up to our eyeballs, and you were too wrapped up in your precious designs to notice or care. So that justifies stealing? That justifies... I stopped myself from mentioning the fire, letting him fill in the blanks. That justifies... Doing what needs to be done, he snapped. Do you know how much easier things would be without having to carry you? Without having to pretend the business is fine while you waste money on your artistic whims? Is that why you used the accelerant on my bedroom door first? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop myself. To make sure I couldn't escape? Instead of denial, Michael's face showed a flash of calculation before he replied, If I'd wanted that door to hold, I would have used something stronger than gasoline. Kyle said it would burn through too quickly, and he was right. The confession, caught on the wire, was exactly what we needed. As I walked away from the meeting, my hands shaking with a mixture of relief and lingering fear, I didn't notice the blue pickup truck accelerating toward me until Detective Rivera, monitoring nearby, shouted a warning. I jumped aside just in time as Kyle's truck mounted the curb where I'd been standing. Rivera and his partner immediately gave chase, catching Kyle 2 blocks away when he crashed into a parked car. The search of his vehicle revealed accelerant residue matching the type used in the house fire, the final physical evidence link we needed. With Kyle in custody and facing serious charges, Emma's loyalty to Michael finally cracked. She agreed to testify against both men in exchange for a reduced sentence, revealing the full extent of the plot that had nearly cost me my life. As I sat in Cassandra's office reviewing her final insurance investigation report, a strange sense of hollow victory settled over me. The case was solved, the truth exposed, but nothing could restore what I'd lost. Not just my home, but my last living family connection and any sense of security I'd once had. What happens now? I asked Cassandra, who had become more friend than investigator over these harrowing weeks. She closed the file and looked at me with understanding. Now you rebuild, not just your house, but your life. And I'll help you every step of the way. For the first time since waking to smoke and flames, I felt something like hope flickering to life inside me. The worst fire had been extinguished, and from those ashes, something new could grow. Despite the damning evidence we had gathered, the wheels of justice turned frustratingly slow. I sat across from District Attorney Patricia Walsh in her office, watching her expression grow increasingly troubled as Detective Rivera laid out our case against Michael and Kyle. You have compelling circumstantial evidence, she admitted, closing the folder. The insurance policies, the financial records, the threatening text message. But without direct evidence connecting your brother to the planning of the crime itself, it's going to be difficult to prosecute. We have his confession about the accelerant on the wire, I protested. A statement that any decent defense attorney will argue was taken out of context, Walsh countered. And the recording itself might be deemed inadmissible because you didn't have proper authorization for surveillance. Rivera leaned forward. What about Kyle Simmons? We caught him trying to run Ms. Anderson down. The accelerant residue in his truck is being challenged by the defense as contamination from his construction work, Walsh finished. I'm not saying we won't prosecute, Detective. I'm saying this won't be the slam-dunk case you're hoping for. As I left the DA's office, the reality of my situation sank in. Michael might actually get away with trying to kill me. Twice. That evening, I checked my professional email and discovered something equally disturbing. Clients canceling projects, some without explanation, others citing concerns about stability and reliability. A quick phone call to my longest-standing client, Jennifer Baker, confirmed my suspicions. I'm so sorry, Rebecca, Jennifer said, her voice genuinely apologetic. Michael called yesterday. He said you were having some mental health issues following the fire, that you weren't sleeping, were making accusations against family members. He suggested we postpone our project until you're better. And you believed him? I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. I didn't know what to believe, Jennifer admitted. But then I got a similar call from Emma, expressing concern about your well-being. 2 people worried about you. It seemed credible. One by one, my professional connections were being poisoned, just as Michael had once poisoned my tea. My financial situation, already precarious after losing nearly everything in the fire, was becoming desperate. He's trying to isolate you, Cassandra observed when I told her about the client exodus. Classic abuser tactic: cut off support systems, create financial dependence, make the victim appear unstable to others. But why? The damage is done. I survived. I know what he did, and the police are investigating, I said. Because as long as you're alive and credible, you're a threat, Cassandra explained. Michael's not just fighting against prison time. He's fighting for his entire carefully constructed public image. And people like your brother, they don't stop until they win or until they're physically prevented from continuing. Her warning proved prophetic later that night, when Rachel and I returned from dinner to find her apartment door slightly ajar. Nothing appeared to be stolen, but my room had been thoroughly ransacked. Drawers emptied, mattress slashed, even the bathroom mirror shattered. Most alarming of all, the gas line to her stove had been loosened, filling the apartment with a faint but dangerous odor that Rachel noticed immediately upon entering. If we'd come home and turned on a light switch, Rachel didn't need to finish. The spark could have ignited the gas, causing an explosion that would have killed us both. You can't stay here anymore, Rachel said as we stood outside waiting for the police and gas company. It's not safe for either of us. She was right. I had already put my best friend in danger simply by associating with her. That night, Cassandra helped me check into a motel under a false name, paying cash to avoid creating a digital trail. No credit cards, no phone calls to people who might be compromised, no social media, she instructed. We need to make you a ghost until Michael and Kyle are behind bars. Living under the radar was lonely and exhausting. I spent days in the bland motel room, jumping at every sound in the hallway, venturing out only for essentials and always in disguise. A blonde wig, sunglasses, clothes I would never normally wear. My isolation was broken by an unexpected phone call from a journalist named Sarah Wilson, who had been covering local arson cases for the past year. 2 suspicious fires connected to the same victim within weeks of each other is a pattern, she explained. And patterns are what I specialize in. Initially reluctant to speak with the press, I realized that publicity might actually provide some protection. If my story was public, any further accidents would immediately raise red flags. We met at a diner 2 towns over, where I shared A carefully edited version of events, emphasizing the evidence while avoiding any statements that could prejudice the pending case. Sarah's article ran 3 days later, not in the local paper where Michael might have influence, but in a respected regional publication with a wide circulation. The story sent ripples through our community. While some people dismissed it as sensationalism, others reached out with support, including former clients who had received Michael's misleading calls. It also forced Michael further into the open. Bank surveillance footage obtained by Detective Rivera showed him withdrawing large sums of cash and meeting with unidentified men in parking lots. His behavior grew increasingly erratic: missed appointments, angry outbursts at employees, paranoid accusations against former friends. "He's planning something drastic," Cassandra warned during one of our secure meetings. "People like Michael, when they feel cornered, become unpredictable." "You mean dangerous," I corrected. "Both," she said grimly. "He knows the evidence is mounting. If he's going to make a move, it will be soon, before he loses access to resources or faces arrest." Cassandra suggested using Michael's desperation against him. With Detective Rivera's approval, we leaked information through a seemingly careless police officer that I would be returning to the partially repaired house to retrieve important documents from a hidden safe behind a loose brick in the fireplace. Documents that didn't actually exist. The trap was set for a Wednesday evening. Rivera and his team established surveillance positions around my property while I entered through the back door, making a show of searching through the debris in the ground floor rooms before heading to the basement where the old fireplace still stood. Everything went according to plan until the moment it didn't. Michael and Kyle arrived as expected, parking down the street and approaching the house separately. Michael through the front door, Kyle through the cellar entrance. What we hadn't anticipated was the signal blocker they brought, a device that immediately cut communications between the police team and me. "Hello, Becca." Michael's voice, calm and almost conversational, froze me in place as I knelt by the fireplace. "Looking for something?" I turned slowly to find my brother at the bottom of the basement stairs, Kyle blocking the cellar door behind. Him. The dim emergency lighting cast menacing shadows across their faces. "Michael," I acknowledged, fighting to keep my voice steady. "And Kyle, I'm surprised to see you out on bail." "Money still talks in this town," Michael replied with a cold smile. "Though I'm running short on it these days thanks to you." He stepped closer, and I saw something glint in his hand. A hunting knife, the one our father had given him for his 18th birthday. "You know," he continued conversationally, "if you'd just died in that fire like you were supposed to, everything would have been so much simpler. Quick, painless, dignified even. Now it's become messy." "Is that why you tried to poison me first?" I asked, stalling while trying to think of an escape route. "Thallium in my tea? Was that supposed to be the dignified option?" Something flickered across Michael's face. Surprise, perhaps, that I had figured it out. "It was too slow," he admitted. "And you stopped drinking the tea regularly after you complained about the bitter taste. I needed something more definitive." "So you decided to burn me alive? Your own sister?" The anger that had been building inside me for weeks finally erupted. "Was the money really worth that much to you?" "It's not just about money." Michael's composure cracked. "It's about fixing the mess our father left us in, the mess you made worse with your artistic vision for the company. Do you know how hard I've worked to keep Anderson Design afloat while you played with your pretty drawings?" The raw resentment in Michael's voice stunned me. All these years working side by side, and I'd never glimpsed the hatred festering beneath his polished exterior. "You've been embezzling from the company for years," I countered. "Gambling away our parents' legacy while blaming me? That's quite a story you're telling yourself, Michael." Kyle shifted uncomfortably by the door, clearly irritated by our conversation. "Can we hurry this up? The cops could figure out something's wrong any minute." "There's no rush," Michael replied, his eyes never leaving mine. The signal blocker gives us plenty of time, and I want Becca to understand why this is happening. She deserves that much. How considerate, I said coldly. Explanations before execution. Michael circled the room, keeping the knife visible. You always were Dad's favorite, you know. The artistic one, the special one. Michael will be fine. He'd say, Michael always lands on his feet. As if being reliable somehow made me less valuable than his precious creative daughter. This is about Dad? Seriously? I couldn't hide my disbelief. He's been dead for 3 years, Michael. And left us a business drowning in debt. I've been killing myself trying to salvage what's left while you refused every practical business decision I suggested. The Preston account could have saved us, but no. You didn't like their corporate vision. The merger with Taylor Graphics would have doubled our client base, but you blocked it because it wasn't creatively fulfilling. Each accusation came with a step closer, his knuckles white around the knife handle. So you decided to solve the problem by killing me, I said, trying to keep my voice calm while looking for anything I could use as a weapon. Very professional business strategy. $4 million from your personal policy, $3 million from the business policy, Michael recited. 7 million reasons to start fresh, debt-free, with investors actually willing to work with a sensible business model. The basement door suddenly creaked open above, and Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale in the dim light. Michael, is it done? She stepped down a few stairs before spotting me still very much alive. Oh, I thought... We're just having a conversation, Michael said tightly. Did you check for police like I asked? I did. There are unmarked cars down the block. Emma descended the stairs fully, her nervousness evident as she kept glancing between me and the knife in Michael's hand. I thought this was going to look like a suicide, not this. Plans change, Michael snapped. She knows too much. We need to be thorough. I caught Emma's expression, genuine shock at Michael's words. Despite everything, she hadn't expected this level of violence. He didn't tell you the whole plan, did he, Emma? I addressed her directly. About how he's going to eliminate me, collect the insurance, and then the two of you will disappear to Europe. Of course he told me, Emma said, but her voice wavered. Did he also tell you what happens to accomplices when the money runs out? Or when they become liabilities? I pressed, watching doubt cloud her features. Don't listen to her, Michael. Warned. Becca's always been manipulative. Kyle's going to prison for the attempt on my life in the park, I continued. How long before Michael decides you're a liability too, Emma? Insurance fraud is one thing, but murder... Shut up. Michael lunged forward, pressing the knife against my throat. Emma, grab that rope from the workbench. We're going to make this quick. Emma hesitated, and in that moment of uncertainty, Michael made a fatal mistake. He turned away from me to shout at her. Emma, now! I seized the moment, shoving him hard into the old workbench. The knife clattered to the floor as tools and cans crashed down. Emma screamed, backing up the stairs, while Kyle moved to block my escape. You stupid bitch, Michael snarled, recovering quickly, always making everything harder than it needs to be. He lunged for me again as Emma tried to intervene. Michael, stop. This isn't what we agreed to. Her words cut off in a cry of pain, as Michael struck her hard across the face, sending her stumbling back into an old shelving unit. The violent action seemed to shock even Kyle. Man, what the hell? You didn't say anything about hurting Emma. Everyone shut up and do what I say, Michael shouted, his carefully maintained facade completely shattered now. Kyle, grab her. Emma, stop crying and help him. As the siblings hesitated, Michael reached for a kerosene lantern that had survived the fire, one of the few items still intact in the basement. If you won't help, I'll do it myself. We'll make it look like she came back to the house, knocked over a lantern, and couldn't escape the fire. Again, poetic, isn't it? He stepped toward me with the lantern, his intention clear. Kyle moved to restrain me, but Emma surprised us all by shoving past her brother toward the stairs. "I'm calling the police," she announced. "This is insane." "You're not going anywhere." Michael grabbed her arm roughly, the lantern swinging in his other hand. In the struggle, it slipped from his grasp, crashing to the floor and immediately igniting the old newspapers and chemical-soaked rags scattered around the workbench. The fire spread with shocking speed, fed by the ancient wooden beams and debris from the previous blaze. Within seconds, thick smoke filled the basement as flames climbed the walls. "Look what you did!" Michael shouted at Emma, who had fallen during the struggle and lay dazed on the basement floor. Kyle was already backing toward the exit, self-preservation, clearly his priority. "Kyle, wait!" I called out. "Help me with Emma. She's hurt." But Kyle had already disappeared through the cellar door, abandoning both his sister and Michael to save himself. Michael seemed frozen for a moment, watching the flames with the same clinical detachment I'd seen as he watched our house burn the first time. Then, without a backward glance at Emma or me, he turned and rushed up the basement stairs. The smoke was growing thicker, making it difficult to breathe or see. On the floor, Emma stirred weakly, blood trickling from where she'd hit her head, on the concrete. I had a choice: try to save myself by following Kyle out the cellar door, or help the woman who had been part of the plot to kill me. Maybe it was the memory of being trapped and helpless in my own bedroom, or maybe just basics. Human decency, but I couldn't leave her to die. Crouching low to avoid the worst of the smoke, I made my way to Emma's side. "Emma, come on, we need to move," I urged, helping her to a sitting position. She was dazed, her eyes unfocused. "The cellar door. We need to get out that way." Half dragging, half carrying her, I navigated through the growing inferno toward the door Kyle had used. We were only steps away when a thunderous crash shook the basement. Part of the ceiling had collapsed, blocking our escape route completely, trapped again, in a burning building. The cruel symmetry wasn't lost on me. The only way out now was up, the internal stairs to the main floor, through the heart of the fire. Emma was more alert now, panic clearing her confusion. "We're going to die here," she whispered, coughing violently as smoke filled her lungs. "No, we're not," I insisted, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. "There's a small window near the top of the stairs. If we can break it, maybe we can climb through." The stairs creaked dangerously as we climbed, the fire eating away at their structural integrity. The small window, once just big enough for a child to climb through, was our only hope. Using a piece of broken shelf, I smashed the glass and cleared the frame. "You first," I told Emma, helping boost her toward the narrow opening. She was smaller than me, but it was still a tight fit. With desperate strength, she wriggled through, collapsing on the ground outside. I tried to follow, but the window was too small for my shoulders. As I struggled to force myself through, another section of ceiling collapsed behind me, sending a blast of heat and debris up the stairwell. A piece of flaming timber struck my leg, and I cried out in pain. The fire was everywhere now, consuming the basement with unnatural speed, fed by the old chemicals and wood. With one last desperate push, I managed to get my head and one arm through the window, but my lower body remained trapped inside. The smoke was overwhelming, filling my lungs until each breath was agony. My vision began to darken at the edges. As consciousness started to slip away, I heard sirens in the distance and felt hands grabbing my arm from outside. "We've got her. Pull harder." Detective Rivera's voice cut through my fading awareness. With a final excruciating effort, they yanked me through the window just as the entire staircase collapsed in flame behind me. I fell onto the grass, gasping for clean air, my lungs burning and my leg throbbing where the timber had struck. Through the haze of pain and smoke, I saw firefighters battling the blaze, police officers securing the scene, and paramedics rushing toward us with stretchers. In the chaos, I glimpsed Michael being handcuffed near a police car, his perfect facade finally cracked beyond repair, while Kyle was already in the back seat of another cruiser, head bowed in defeat. "We heard everything," Rivera said, kneeling beside me as paramedics began treating my burns. The transmitter kept working even though communications were blocked. We recorded Michael's entire confession before we realized something had gone wrong with the operation. "Emma," I croaked, my voice raw from smoke. "She's being treated," he assured me. "And she's talking, telling us everything." As I was loaded into an ambulance, consciousness fading with the pain and exhaustion, I realized that Michael had finally accomplished what he'd set out to do. He'd destroyed our family home completely. But he hadn't destroyed me. And now, he'd destroyed himself. The hospital room was bright with morning sunlight when I opened my eyes, the steady beep of monitors a reassuring rhythm in the background. My leg was heavily bandaged, and the simple act of breathing still brought discomfort, but I was alive. Again. Cassandra sat beside the bed, looking as though she hadn't slept in days. When she noticed I was awake, relief washed over her tired features. "You have got to stop nearly dying on me," she said, attempting to sound stern despite the emotion in her voice. "It's becoming a habit." What happened? My throat felt raw, my voice barely above a whisper. "You don't remember?" Cassandra poured a cup of water and helped me take small sips. "You saved Emma Simmons's life, that's what happened. After her own brother abandoned her and your brother left her to die." Memories of the basement fire came flooding back. The collapsed ceiling, the tiny window, Emma's weight as I pushed her to safety. "Michael and Kyle?" I asked. "Both in custody. No bail this time." Cassandra's satisfaction was evident. "The recording device kept transmitting even though you couldn't hear us. We got every word. Michael's confession, his previous poisoning attempts, the financial motives, everything." Over the next few days, as I recovered under the watchful eyes of doctors and the protective presence of a police officer stationed outside my door, the full legal picture emerged. Michael and Kyle faced multiple charges: attempted murder, arson, fraud, and embezzlement. Emma, while also charged, had accepted a plea deal in exchange for her full testimony. "She says she believed it was just going to be insurance fraud," Detective Rivera explained during one of his visits. "That Michael convinced her the house would be empty when it burned, that no one would be hurt. She claims she didn't know about the locked door or the plan to actually harm you until it was too late." "Do you believe her?" I asked. Rivera shrugged. "Partially. She definitely knew more than she's admitting, but she also clearly drew the line at murder. Her testimony will be crucial in making sure your brother serves maximum time." 2 weeks later, cleared by doctors but still walking with a cane due to my injured leg, I attended the preliminary hearing for Michael's case. It was the first time I'd seen him since the second fire. He looked haggard, the polished exterior completely gone, replaced by prison scrubs and defeated eyes. When it was my turn to testify, I felt a strange calm settle over me as I detailed everything: the locked door, seeing Michael watching from across the street, finding the insurance policy, the poisoning attempts, and the final confrontation in the basement. During that confrontation, did the defendant express remorse for his actions? The prosecutor asked. "No," I said, looking directly at Michael. "He expressed resentment. He blamed our father for favoring me, blamed me for business decisions, blamed everyone but himself for his actions." Michael's attorney tried to undermine my credibility, suggesting trauma had affected my perception of events, but the evidence was overwhelming. Between the recordings, Emma's testimony, and the mountain of financial and digital evidence, Michael's guilt was undeniable. As the hearing concluded, Michael finally looked at me directly. There was no remorse in his gaze, only cold hatred and something else. Disbelief that I had survived his attempts, that I was still standing while his carefully constructed life crumbled around him. The trial itself came 3 months later. By then, I was physically recovered, though the emotional scars remained raw. The courtroom was packed with reporters, the case having captured public attention as a shocking tale of familial betrayal. Throughout the proceedings, rumors circulated about another tragic possibility: that Michael might have been involved in our parents' fatal car accident 3 years earlier. While never proven conclusively, evidence suggested the brake lines had been tampered with prior to the crash. "We can't prove it," Rivera told me privately. But the insurance payout from their deaths was what kept the business afloat after Michael's early gambling losses. The timing is suspicious, to say the least. On the final day of testimony, Emma took the stand, visibly nervous but determined. She detailed how Michael had manipulated her, using her brother's financial troubles as leverage to secure their help with the arson. "He told me no one would get hurt," she insisted, tears streaming down her face. "But then he locked Rebecca's door the night of the fire. When I questioned him, he said it was just to buy time for the fire to take hold, that she would still get out." I wanted to believe him. Michael's facade finally shattered completely during the prosecutor's closing arguments. As evidence of his financial crimes was meticulously laid out alongside the murder plots, he leapt to his feet. "She was ruining everything," he shouted, pointing at me while bailiffs rushed to restrain him. "The business, the legacy, everything our father built. Someone had to fix it." His outburst sealed his fate. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning with guilty verdicts on all counts. The judge, citing the calculated nature of the crimes and Michael's complete lack of remorse, sentenced him to 25 years without possibility of parole. Kyle received 15 years for his role in both the arson and the attempt on my life in the park. Emma, due to her cooperation and last-minute change of heart, was sentenced to 5 years with possibility of parole after serving 2. The insurance company, with Cassandra championing my case, honored my claim despite the fraud attempt. The settlement provided enough to rebuild, not just my home, but my life and business as well. "What will you do with the property?" Cassandra asked as we stood on the empty lot where our family home had once stood. "Rebuild the Victorian?" Shook my head, looking at the bare earth where so much pain had occurred. "No, I'm going to create something new here. A memorial garden for victims of family violence, a place of healing rather than destruction." 6 months after the sentencing, the memorial garden broke ground. The community that had once been divided over my accusations came together to support the project, donating plants, benches, and labor. The centerpiece was a phoenix sculpture, rising from stylized flames, created by a local artist who had lost her own sister to domestic violence. During this time, I began to rebuild my business as well. Clients returned, some apologetic for having believed Michael's lies, others simply glad to work with me again. Cassandra, having completed her insurance investigation, recommended me for a consulting position with her company, specializing in fraud prevention. "You have unique insight now," she explained, "and helping others avoid what happened to you might be part of your healing process." She was right. Each case I consulted on brought not only financial stability but a sense of purpose, turning my nightmare into something that could protect others. I visited Emma in prison a year after the sentencing. The meeting wasn't about forgiveness. Some bridges remain burned beyond repair, but about understanding. She described Michael's systematic emotional manipulation, how he isolated her from friends who questioned their relationship, how he leveraged her love for her brother to secure her complicity. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said as our meeting drew to a close. "But I need you to know I never wanted you dead. When I realized what was really happening, it was like waking from a nightmare into an even worse one." "Is that why you tried to stop him in the basement?" I asked. "Partly," she admitted, "but also because when he hit me, I finally saw him clearly. The mask came off, and the person underneath wasn't the man I thought I loved. It was someone I didn't recognize at all. On the anniversary of the first fire, I hosted a dinner for those who had stood by me through the ordeal: Rachel, whose home had been my sanctuary; Cassandra, whose determination had helped bring Michael to justice, Detective Rivera, who had believed me when others doubted, Mrs. Winters, whose observation had provided a crucial link in the evidence, and others who had offered support when I needed it most. As we shared food and stories on the patio overlooking the newly completed memorial garden, I realized I had found something Michael had tried to take from me: family. Not bound by blood, but by choice and loyalty and shared experience. The following spring, I opened the doors to my new business, Phoenix Security Consultancy, specializing in helping survivors of domestic and family crime protect themselves and rebuild their lives. The logo, a stylized phoenix rising from ashes, echoed the garden sculpture and my own journey. As I cut the ribbon at the opening ceremony, surrounded by my chosen family and clients who had become friends, I looked back at the garden where our family home had once stood. The tragedy that had begun there had taken almost everything from me, but it had also given me something unexpected: a new purpose, a stronger sense of self, and the unshakable knowledge that I was a survivor, not just of fire, but of betrayal. And from those ashes, I had truly risen.